Alright, YouTube, David Harry here, and following on from my previous video about DaVinci Resolve 17.3, where I was testing it to see how well it could play 8K media at 60 frames per second in an 8K 60 frames per second timeline on a MacBook Air M1, for which you can actually catch that video in a link from the description below, or it might even pop up on the screen here if you're interested in such things. In this video, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing, but this time I'm going to be using 8K 24. Now, just before I get into this video is not an edit exercise. What it is, I need to know initially, and I think a lot of people do, need to know, what kind of media we can deal with at whatever frame rates and resolutions. Because don't forget, even before you get to an edit, if you can't play the footage properly in the timeline, you're definitely going to have issues in the edit. And then beyond that, you're going to have a lot of problems once you do anything further, such as effects and things like that. So this video is just to give people an idea of basic file compatibility at varying resolutions and frame rates and such. So with that said, what I'm going to do here is explain the setup so we know exactly where we are. So I'll just pop up here, and as we can see, DaVinci Resolve 17.3. Also down here, we can see in the settings we are in 8K UHD, 24 frames per second. Now, as far as playback is concerned up here, there's nothing going on to do with proxies and optimized media. And as far as the timeline proxy mode is concerned, it's off, so we're not dropping resolution in the timeline. I will, however, try this as part of the testing. Also as well, the MacBook Air that I'm using is actually the 8GB version as well. And it's got 512GB SSD, which basically means it's got the full GPU, so the 8-core GPU. Another thing as well, before I crack onto this, is the test that I'm doing here doesn't heat up or massively stress the MacBook. So basically, we're not going to be hitting thermal throttling at any point here, because this is literally just playing the files. It does struggle, I add, but it doesn't burn out the Mac or anything. Anyway, so let's have a quick look at the files here. So the first file that we've got on the timeline is H.265, and this is actually shot off a phone. So this is 8K 24 off a phone. Now, the fact that it's off a phone, it's not going to look great. However, in the scene, we've got cars going by, so it's going to give us a really good indication, because there's a lot of motion as to what's going on with the frame rate and stuff. So if you just have a quick look at the inspector here, H.265 main level 6.1, 24 frames per second, 8K UHD. Now also, there's a second bit of media here, and this is actually a transcode to ProRes, which was actually done by Resolve. So if you have a quick look at that, we can see there Apple ProRes 422 HQ 24 frames per second, 8K UHD. Okay, so what I'm going to do here then is start just playing through these files, and let's see what's going on. Now, as I do this, what you want to do is have a look at the frame buffer up here as well. So that'll give you a good idea as to what's going on as far as Resolve buffering the video ahead of it starting to play. So here's the H.265 variant first. Okay, now I'll stop that quickly because I will go full screen in a second. What we just seen there was a fair old bit of frame dropping and stuff, and the buffer didn't immediately fill or anything, so it was kind of struggling there. So, you definitely would have problems trying to do anything with, with something like that. Now, what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'll start playing the timeline again, and in fact, what I'll do, I will go further into that media just in case it's already pre-buffered at this point. So I'm trying to stress it as much as I can here. So I'll go into the media, I'll start playing again, check out the frame buffer, have a look at what the picture's doing. Then about 10 seconds or so into it, I will go full screen, and then let's see what happens once I go full screen with it as well. So I'm going to quickly jump in and hit play somewhere into the timeline. Here we go. Okay, now I'll go full screen. Okay, so what we've seen there then was pretty much the same thing that we've seen before. It spluttered and stuff and kind of caught up with itself. But weirdly, when I went full screen, although it was already buffered and ready to play out, it looked like it had done the same thing again, where it had to kind of recorrect itself with its buffer to redraw it again in full screen. So there was a bit of a problem there. Now, to be honest, that going full screen, you would probably only do that just as a bit of confidence monitoring on your GUI here, because if you're going to do this stuff properly, you're going to be going to an external monitor anyway. However, the point is quite interesting with the way that it deals with drawing the video itself to the screen when it's just in the mode that it's in right now, in a small box on the screen on the preview, and then when you go full screen. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go to the ProRes footage here, because by rights the ProRes footage should be way better. Now let's see what happens here. So same thing, have a quick look at the frame buffer up here as a start. Okay, that was all kinds of shades of mess there, wasn't it? And eventually it kind of did catch up with itself. Now, I've got something to point out here, but what I'm going to do, I'll do the same thing that I did just before. I'm going to jump further into the clip. I'll start again. Let's observe the frame buffer, see what it's doing. Then once it's caught up with itself and it starts playing real time, I will then enter full screen on it. So I'll quickly jump down and see if I can clear. And let me just explain quickly. The reason why I'm jumping further into the clip is just in case it's already pre-buffered something at this point and it might play properly, but that's not the way that you're going to edit. So I'm going to just jump into it and do something quick. Here we go. That actually took ages to start. Hold on. Okay, we've hit real time now. Let's see what happens here. Okay, now that is an absolute mess, okay? That is completely uneditable in its present condition. We would definitely have to start dropping resolution for the timeline here, or indeed we'd have to drop the project resolution initially for the edit and then probably just go back to full resolution for the export. So what I'm going to do here anyway is just show you what it's doing as far as like scrubbing is concerned. That scrubbing is horrendous, and let's try the H.265. Weirdly, that's also bad, but that doesn't feel quite as bad as the ProRes. Now, the interesting point that I've got to make here is the fact that H.264, or at least this variant of it here, this is an Inter-Frame codec, and basically ProRes is the opposite. It is Intra-Frame. So when I say that, Intra-Frame, which is what the ProRes is, that's just the equivalent to all iframe, and it's basically way easier to edit, or it should be. And Inter-Frame is like typically consistent of, say, I and B and P frames and stuff. That stuff is usually the thing that's a lot more difficult to actually play and edit. But as we've just seen there, it's the total reverse. So the H.265 is actually doing better than what ProRes is, which is absolutely insane here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop the timeline playback here as well. So let's just drop the preview quality down to a quarter res, and I'll just quickly do the same things again. First one, I'll just play back. Let's have a look at the buffer, see what happens, and see how quick it takes to catch up with itself. Right, I'll stop that immediately because we've seen straight away there was some serious issues going on there as well, even though we are now on a quarter playback. Let me just double check, make sure that's stuck there. Hold on. Yeah, we are okay. So same thing, I'm just going to jump in, try and clear any pre-cache if it's already there, hit play, we'll watch it for a bit here, and then I'll go full screen. Okay, so pretty much the same thing going on there. It was all spluttery and stuff like that. However, this time, hold on, give us a sec. It's a it's no more responsive than what it was before, to be honest. So that really hasn't really felt like it's had a great deal of, like, you know, assistance really by dropping the timeline resolution. However, obviously, if we were doing other stuff here and there was certain, say, you know, like light effects going on, we probably would get away with that stuff in real time. This video is not going to be doing anything like that. This is just purely to see what's going on with the footage in its just like native instance in the timeline. Now, however, when I go to the ProRes, let's check out here. So same thing. Let me just go for a quick play here. Check out the buffer, see what's happening. Immediate. Okay, that was immediate. Now what I'll do, same thing, I'll just jump in quick, press play, have a look at the buffer, see its response to the picture in the screen, and I will go full screen for a little bit here. Hold on. Immediate again. Full screen. Little bit of a jerk, but nothing like that you couldn't live with. We go back again. Actually, hold on. Okay, totally different story now. We are now seeing the type of response that you would expect from an Intra-Frame codec, which is what ProRes is. Now let me just see what it's going to be like for scrubbing. Oh yeah, that's well easy. Yeah, that is the exact type of response that you would be expecting. Okay, so yeah, what I'm doing here is just pointing stuff out to people to let people, like, you know, have a little think about, you know, what's going on. But immediately, I'm very surprised the way that we're getting such a marked difference in full resolution or at full render quality between an Inter-Frame codec and an Intra-Frame codec, because in the past, you know, this wouldn't be like this. It's the total reverse. In fact, I think if you look at this on any other NLE system and use a system codec, which is an Intra-Frame one, you'll see the opposite occurring, where the Intra-Frame is responding much better than the Inter-Frame. Now what it is, DaVinci Resolve 17.3 has had a massive boost to do with the likes of like H.265 and stuff. So we are clearly seeing here that kind of like extra boost that's being applied, which is fantastic. However, I'm still just mega surprised at how badly ProRes is doing versus the H.265, which is pretty insane. Okay, right, I'm not going to drag this out any further. I think if anybody needed to understand what was going on here, they will have done and stuff like that. Now, if anybody's got any ideas for any things that they would like me to test as far as like codecs resolutions and frame rates and such, just let me know in the comments section, and hopefully I can do something that's a bit quick. I do appreciate that these videos probably feel quite long, and that's because they are. The reason for that is because I like to be very thorough in explaining exactly what's going on here, and I know that's probably not really what most people want to see. However, I'm doing this stuff for people who are thinking about getting into these things or buying into it, who may need to know the answer to these types of things, you see. Anyways, yeah, if you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to my channel, getting all over the bell notification icon, and maybe, like, you know, share the video, because I'm trying to get to 1 billion subscribers by the end of play tomorrow. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.